Welcome to Chapter 9. I'm Matt Lambert with DPZ Co-Design. This chapter gives a little background on code reform workshop case studies. Workshops present an opportunity for you to consult with a team of zoning reform experts about specific situations that you're dealing with. The better prepared you are for that conversation, the more meaningful input you'll get out of it. Whether you're looking at a traditional main street or downtown as covered in the user's guide on the left, or a commercial corridor or shopping center as covered in the guide on the right, your specific context, roadblocks, and goals all give direction to and constrain the zoning reform process. You'll provide a brief presentation to orient the code reform team and other workshop participants about your code reform needs. Selecting a realistic workshop goal is important. Most places have a number of different potential code reform targets. Even if they are close together to each other, they have different considerations and contexts. Choose one. Depending upon your experience in code reform, that may be your most prominent opportunity, or it may be your most vexing problem. Either way, it should be meaningful reform that you hope to accomplish in the near term. For most places, that will be the main street or downtown, which is the best place to start, ahead of corridors and shopping centers. You can refer to the mapping and place type descriptions included in both guides to better understand the code reform opportunities. Understanding the physical extent and constraints of place is important, both in the overall, where the place is located in the context of your city or village, and a closer aerial view of the area being targeted. Aerials provide quite a bit of information and may be supplemented with a zoning map or other relevant map-based information. On-the-ground photographs will also help describe the context within which you are working. Here we learn things that are not apparent from above, like the scale and treatment of sidewalks, planting, the elements of the street, the quality of building facades, especially storefronts, and the context of historic and contemporary buildings. It also helps to clarify the relationship between the street and buildings. The photograph here demonstrates a helpful photographic angle which captures the activity on one sidewalk while also capturing the facades across the street. Too often people take photos directly down the center of a street or a sidewalk or head onto a building, so try to capture more context in any imagery. And remember, we're hoping to get a feel for the space, not to document every building. If there are specific conditions to discuss, like a specific building, a problem, or something that you've seen as successful, photos of those may be helpful as well. Beyond the context, you should share relevant information about your current zoning code. What type of zone is applied to the current context? Is the code easy to operate? Is the code usable for developers, property owners? Are there any particular quirks? Sharing the relevant districts and regulations with the group can aid in addressing reform targets. This is code reform, of course, so we really need to get into the code. And finally, for context, describe your capacity. Capacity includes community support, political support and fluency with zoning, staff leadership support and fluency with the desired outcomes, and the staff's capacity. Really, how many hats are you wearing? And can you implement more significant changes, or do you need to go a little at a time? Earlier in this series, Lynn Richards spoke about this in greater detail. If you've attempted to change your regulations or change the outcomes of development, what have you tried and what is in the way? Often there are local regulations that you already know are a problem. Sometimes there just hasn't been the support to pass new standards. Maybe the development community has opposed some aspect of previous reform efforts, or maybe you have some wacky historic property patterns that keep getting in the way. Identifying roadblocks provides a window into the interplay between codes, community leadership, the local economic and development conditions, and other indirect issues affecting past, current, and future reform efforts. And finally, we need to know what you're trying to achieve. Goals may be based on economic development, placemaking, historic preservation, stormwater management, all sorts of things. There may be more than one key goal even. Articulating where you are trying to go is necessary to discuss the best path forward, and it helps to discuss prior actions that may have fallen short of achieving those goals. Has some code reform happened before? What didn't work? Did it work well? What were the problems? The same for efforts taken in the built environment, whether from the public sector or private sector. Maybe parks that were attempted, public spaces attempted, buildings that have been built. Why do you feel that your goals are not being met? Preparing your workshop case study is really as simple as that. Where do you feel that code reform is appropriate? What type of place is it? What is that place like? What is your regulatory and political environment like? How many hats do you wear, and is there any help? What have you tried? What are you trying to accomplish? And finally, what have your goals not been accomplished yet? Gathering and presenting this information will help you get the most out of the workshop. Happy reforming!